You know what makes my blood absolutely boil? Watching a so-called Scottish warrior run his mouth about earning opportunities he doesn't deserve while the actual champion stands there playing peacemaker like we're at some corporate team-building retreat. The 26th of December 2025, SmackDown gave us one of the most infuriating, manipulative, and downright disrespectful segments we've seen in years, and I'm about to break down exactly why Drew McIntyre just pulled off the biggest con job in WWE history. If you think I'm overreacting, stick around, because by the end of this video, you're either going to be screaming in agreement or defending McIntyre in the comments like your life depends on it. Either way, WWE is laughing all the way to the bank while we fight about it. Let's talk about Drew McIntyre's miraculous transformation from bitter, whining has-been to suddenly deserving championship contender. This man spent months crying about respect, attacking legends, playing mind games with Centimeter Punk's family, and acting like the entire wrestling world owed him something. And now he waltzes onto SmackDown, cuts one intense promo, and suddenly he's got Cody Rhodes nodding along like they are best friends planning a playdate. Are you kidding me right now? The audacity of this entire segment starts with McIntyre's entrance. The man walks out with that signature scowl, the dramatic lighting hitting him just right, and you can already tell he's rehearsed this speech in the mirror about 50 times. He's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, right? Wrong. He's playing victim while everyone else is trying to actually earn their spots through legitimate competition. But let's break down his argument, shall we? McIntyre claims he deserves this title opportunity because of his history, his battles, his wars with Cody Rhodes. He talks about their past encounters like they are some legendary rivalry that defines modern wrestling. Here's the problem with that narrative: McIntyre has been on a losing streak against top-tier talent when it actually mattered. You want to talk about wars? Wars have winners and losers, Drew. And lately, you've been collecting LS like they are going out of style. But the segment gets even more infuriating when McIntyre proposes 3 stages of hell. 3 stages of hell. One of the most brutal, career-defining match types in WWE history. A match type reserved for blood feuds, for genuine hatred, for rivalries that have been building for years with legitimate heat. And McIntyre just asked for it? Like he's ordering from a drive-through menu? Yeah, I'll take a 3 stages of hell match, extra drama, hold the actual storyline justification. Now here's where my head almost exploded. Cody Rhodes accepts. Just like that. No hesitation. No, let me think about it. No, you haven't earned this. The undisputed WWE champion, the man who supposedly represents fighting champions everywhere, the guy who talks about doing things the right way, just hands Drew McIntyre exactly what he wants on a silver platter. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When did we start rewarding wrestlers for simply asking for opportunities instead of earning them? Drop your thoughts below because I'm genuinely confused about when this became acceptable. The psychology here is actually brilliant from WWE's perspective, and that's what makes it so frustrating. They are banking on the fact that we're all so starved for compelling main event content that we'll accept any premise as long as it promises violence and drama. 3 stages of hell sounds epic, right? It sounds intense. It sounds like must-see television. And that's exactly why this whole setup is manipulative garbage designed to make us forget that there's no real reason for this match to happen. Let's compare this to actual 3 stages of hell matches from history. Think about The Rock versus Mankind. That feud was personal. Mankind had been screwed over, there was genuine animosity, and the match felt like the only way to settle their differences. Think about Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, decades of friendship turned to betrayal, real emotion, stakes that mattered beyond just I want the title. Think about any legitimate 3 stages of hell match, and you'll find a common thread: they all had months of storytelling justification. What's the story between Cody and Drew right now? They've faced each other before. That's it. That's the entire justification. We've fought before, so let's fight again, but this time more. It's lazy. It's creatively bankrupt. And it's insulting to everyone who's invested in actual storytelling. But let's give Drew his due for a moment. The man can cut a promo. Say what you want about his booking, his character choices, or his decision-making, but when that microphone is in his hand, Drew McIntyre commands attention. His intensity during this segment was palpable. You could feel the desperation masked as determination. You could see him trying to will this opportunity into existence through sheer force of charisma. And you know what? It worked. Not because his argument was sound, but because he sold it like his career depended on it. That's the frustrating part about being a wrestling fan in 2025. We're constantly caught between appreciating the performer's talents and being absolutely exasperated by the creative decisions that put them in these positions. Drew McIntyre is talented. Nobody with a functioning brain cell would argue otherwise. But talent doesn't automatically equal deserving every opportunity that comes along. Here's another question for the comments, and this one might get spicy. Is Drew McIntyre more concerned with being champion or just being in the main event spotlight? Think about his actions over the past year and let me know what you think. The segment continued with Cody Rhodes responding, and this is where the champion's character really got tested. Cody has built his entire WWE return run on this idea of being a fighting champion, being accessible, being the guy who represents what's right in professional wrestling. He's the anti-corporate champion, the wrestler's wrestler, the guy who supposedly does things differently than the previous generation. So when Drew McIntyre challenges him to 3 stages of hell, what does Cody do? He talks about respect. He talks about knowing what Drew is capable of. He talks about their history. He does everything except ask the obvious question, Drew, what have you done lately to deserve this? That's the question that should have been asked. That's the question every single viewer at home was screaming at their television. Because let's run through Drew McIntyre's recent accomplishments, shall we? He had that obsessive feud with Centimeter Punk that ended with him losing at WrestleMania. He spent weeks attacking legends and talking about how disrespected he felt. He had various matches on different brands with mixed results. And now he's suddenly first in line for the undisputed WWE Championship. The mathematics aren't mathing, as the kids say these days. What makes this even more infuriating is that there are so many other deserving contenders on the SmackDown roster who've been grinding, who've been winning, who've been building momentum the right way. But instead of showcasing them, instead of rewarding consistent performance and actual storyline progression, we're giving the title shot to the guy who asks for it the loudest. This is the wrestling equivalent of a kid throwing a tantrum in a store until their parents buy them candy, except the kid is a 6'5" Scottish warrior, and the candy is a 3 stages of hell match for the biggest prize in the company. Let's talk about the 3 stages of hell stipulation itself for a moment, because this is actually fascinating from a match psychology perspective. The concept is brutal: 3 different matches, back to back, and you need to win 2 out of 3 to claim victory. It's designed to test every aspect of a wrestler's arsenal: technical ability, hardcore brutality, maybe submissions or specialty matches depending on what stages are chosen. The problem? We don't know what the 3 stages are yet. Drew made the challenge, Cody accepted, and now we're all supposed to just wait and see what WWE decides the stakes will be. That's backwards storytelling. The stages should be determined by the story. What have these 2 men been through together? What would hurt most? What would prove definitively who's better? Instead, it feels like WWE Creative is going to throw darts at a board with match types written on it and just see what sticks. First stage, traditional wrestling match. Second stage, street fight. Third stage, cage match. Sure, why not? It sounds cool, but it doesn't mean anything beyond sounding cool. Compare that to historical 3 stages of hell matches where every stage was selected for a reason. Each stage represented a different aspect of the feud, a different chapter in the story, a different way to torment the opponent based on their specific rivalry. That's the difference between wrestling that respects its audience and wrestling that just assumes will pop for violence and drama regardless of context. Now here's a question I genuinely want your perspective on. Do you think modern WWE relies too heavily on stipulation matches to create interest instead of building actual storylines? This isn't just about this segment, it's about a larger pattern. Comment below with your honest opinion. The crowd reaction during this segment was interesting too. You could hear the cheers when Drew made the challenge, because fans love the idea of 3 stages of hell. You could hear support for Cody because he's the beloved babyface champion. But there was also this underlying confusion, this sense that people weren't quite sure why this was happening now or what made it feel so urgent. That confusion is WWE banking on spectacle over substance. And look, I'm not saying spectacle is bad. Wrestling is supposed to be spectacular, but when spectacle becomes a replacement for storytelling instead of an enhancement of storytelling, we've got a problem. Drew McIntyre's character work during this segment deserves analysis too. He played the role of a man who's reached his breaking point, who's tired of waiting for opportunities, who's ready to take what he believes is rightfully his. That's a compelling character motivation, in theory. In practice, it just makes him look entitled and impatient. There's a fine line between confident determination and whiny entitlement, and Drew has been pirouetting on that line like he's performing Swan Lake. Some moments he comes across as a legitimate baddie who won't be denied. Other moments he comes across as someone who can't understand why everyone isn't acknowledging his greatness every single second of every single day. The frustrating part is that Drew could be booked as an absolutely unstoppable force who legitimately tears through the roster to earn his title shot. Instead, he's booked as someone who argues his way into opportunities and then acts surprised when people question his methods. Cody's response to all this was diplomatic, perhaps too diplomatic. The champion stood there and essentially validated every single thing Drew said. Yes, you're tough. Yes, we have history. Yes, this will be a war. What he didn't say was yes, but you need to earn this first. And that omission speaks volumes about how WWE views championship opportunities in 2025. Here's my question for you: should champions have the power to accept or decline challenges, or should challengers have to earn their shots through wins and rankings? Let me know what you think makes for better wrestling programming. The segment ended with both men standing face to face, the tension building, and a clear message that 3 stages of hell is happening whether we think it's justified or not. And you know what? We'll all watch. That's the brilliance and the frustration of WWE in equal measure. They know we'll watch because we're invested, we're passionate, and we genuinely care about these characters even when we're screaming about their booking decisions. But let's address the elephant in the room: is this match going to be good? Almost certainly yes. Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes are both exceptional performers who will undoubtedly deliver a physical, hard-hitting, emotionally resonant match series. The in-ring quality is not in question. What's in question is whether a great match can overcome a questionable premise. History suggests it can. We've seen plenty of matches that made no sense on paper but delivered in execution. We've seen wrestlers elevate material through sheer talent and determination. And we'll probably see that here too. But should that be the expectation? Should wrestlers constantly have to work harder to justify creative decisions that don't make sense? The broader implication of this segment is what really concerns me as a long-time wrestling fan. If Drew McIntyre can just ask for 3 stages of hell and get it immediately, what does that say about the value of rankings, momentum, or actually building to these moments? What does it say to every other wrestler on the roster who's been following the rules of earning opportunities through victories and storyline progression? It says those rules don't matter if you're loud enough, if you're popular enough, if you can cut a compelling enough promo to make management forget that you haven't actually done anything to deserve what you're asking for. That's a dangerous precedent to set, not just for this storyline but for WWE programming as a whole. Because if this works, if this generates the buzz and the buy rate that WWE wants, what's to stop them from doing it again and again and again? Why build long-term stories when you can just have wrestlers demand stipulation matches and get them on the spot? The art of the wrestling build-up is dying, and segments like this are holding the pillow over its face. Remember when title matches felt special because wrestlers had to climb a ladder of contenders to get there? Remember when stipulation matches felt meaningful because they were the culmination of months of storytelling? Remember when watching a wrestler's journey toward championship gold was just as compelling as the eventual title match itself? This segment suggests WWE doesn't think modern audiences have the patience for that anymore. They think we need instant gratification, immediate stakes, and constant escalation. And maybe they are right about some viewers. But for those of us who fell in love with wrestling because of its storytelling potential, it's genuinely disheartening. Quick question for the long-time fans: what's a classic storyline that built to a big match the right way, and why did it work better than this? I'd love to hear your examples in the comments. Now let's talk about what this means for the WWE Championship scene moving forward. Assuming this match happens at the Royal Rumble or shortly after, we're looking at a significant chunk of Cody's title reign being dedicated to this feud with Drew. That's not necessarily bad, but it does raise questions about what comes after. If Cody wins, which seems likely given his current positioning, then Drew is out of the title picture and needs to be rebuilt before his next opportunity. If Drew wins, which would be a genuine shock, then we're looking at a completely different championship landscape and Cody becomes the chaser again. Either outcome has significant implications for WrestleMania season, which is rapidly approaching. The timing of this segment, coming right after Christmas, is also strategically interesting. WWE knows viewership patterns, knows when people are paying attention, knows when to drop major angles. A post-Christmas SmackDown featuring a 3 stages of hell challenge is designed to get people talking during that weird week between Christmas and New Year's when everyone's off work and scrolling social media. From a business perspective, it's smart. From a creative perspective, it's lazy, and that's the constant tension in modern wrestling. The business side and the creative side are often at odds with each other, and we as fans are caught in the middle trying to reconcile our desire for good storytelling with the reality of wrestling as a commercial enterprise. Drew McIntyre's facial expressions throughout this segment told their own story. You could see the desperation behind the bravado, the need to prove himself mixing with the anger at having to constantly justify his place in the company. That's actually a compelling character motivation if WWE would lean into it instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Imagine if the story was explicitly about Drew being tired of the politics, tired of waiting his turn, tired of watching other wrestlers get opportunities he believes should be his. That's interesting. That's a character we can invest in even if we don't agree with his methods. But WWE seems scared to fully commit to that narrative, so we get this weird hybrid where Drew is simultaneously righteous and desperate, justified and petulant. Cody's body language was equally telling. The champion stood tall, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he knows this is a test. Not just a physical test, but a test of his championship philosophy. Can he really be the fighting champion who accepts all challenges while also being the responsible champion who only defends against deserving contenders? Those two ideas are at odds with each other, and this segment highlighted that tension. One thing I'll give this segment credit for, it's got people talking. Love it or hate it, everyone has an opinion about Drew McIntyre challenging Cody Rhodes to 3 stages of hell. That's WWE's goal, and they've achieved it. The question is whether the conversation translates to sustained interest or just momentary buzz that fades once we're on to the next thing. The wrestling business has always been about moments. The problem is that in the modern era, we're so focused on creating viral moments that we forget to build the foundations that make those moments truly impactful. A challenge is only as good as the story that precedes it. A match is only as meaningful as the build-up that justifies it. And a rivalry is only as compelling as the emotional investment we have in seeing it resolved. This segment gave us a moment. A striking, intense, well-performed moment. But moments without context are just noise. And right now, this 3 stages of hell challenge feels like WWE cranking the volume to 11 and hoping we don't notice the lack of substance beneath the spectacle. Here's my final question for you, and this is the big one: would you rather have spectacular matches with questionable build-up, or slower building storylines that lead to satisfying conclusions even if the journey is less flashy? Your answer to that question probably determines how you feel about this entire segment. The reality is that Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes in 3 stages of hell will probably be match of the night, possibly match of the month, depending on when it happens. These are 2 of the best performers in WWE today, and they'll leave everything in the ring. The match quality is not in dispute. What is in dispute is whether this represents good long-term storytelling or just another example of WWE prioritizing short-term excitement over sustainable narratives. And look, I understand why they do it. In an era of infinite entertainment options, wrestling has to fight for every second of viewer attention. Creating instant must-see moments is a valid strategy, but it's also a strategy that can burn bright and fade quickly. The most memorable wrestling storylines, the ones we talk about decades later, are the ones that took their time, that built properly, that earned their emotional payoffs. Will anyone remember this Drew McIntyre challenge in 5 years, or will it just blend into the endless parade of stipulation matches and dramatic confrontations that define modern wrestling? Only time will tell. But what we can say right now is that the 26th of December 2025 gave us a segment that perfectly encapsulates modern WWE, talented performers delivering intense promos about matches that sound amazing but lack the storytelling foundation to justify their existence. It's wrestling in 2025, spectacular, frustrating, and impossible to look away from. So there you have it. Drew McIntyre walked onto SmackDown, demanded 3 stages of hell with Cody Rhodes, and got exactly what he wanted without having to earn it through the traditional channels of competition and storyline development. Cody Rhodes accepted the challenge like the fighting champion he claims to be, validating Drew's approach and setting a precedent that could define championship challenges moving forward. We'll all watch. We'll all have opinions. We'll all debate whether this was genius or madness. And WWE will keep doing exactly what they are doing because they know that, love it or hate it, we're engaged. We're talking. We're sharing. We're commenting. We're keeping wrestling alive through our passionate disagreement about its direction. That's the beautiful frustration of being a wrestling fan. We can acknowledge that something doesn't make perfect sense while simultaneously being excited to see it anyway. We can criticize the journey while looking forward to the destination. We can see the manipulation while appreciating the performance. Drew McIntyre vs Cody Rhodes in 3 stages of hell is happening. It'll be brutal, it'll be spectacular, and it'll probably be fantastic in-ring action. Whether it's good wrestling storytelling is a different question entirely, and that's the conversation WWE should be worried about, even if they are too busy counting Twitter impressions to notice. Now it's your turn. Do you think Drew McIntyre deserves this opportunity? Is Cody Rhodes right to accept every challenge? Should WWE be doing more to make these moments feel earned? Hit the comments and let me know. And if this video made you feel something, whether that's agreement, disagreement, or just confusion, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestling Zone 1 for more brutally honest wrestling analysis. Because at the end of the day, we're all here because we love this crazy, frustrating, spectacular thing called professional wrestling, even when it drives us absolutely insane.